Hi everyone, welcome to the Berlin Phil Live Lounge. Now, this is our annual lounge, usually from Baden-Baden, from our Easter Festival, but we're still in Berlin because we've got a bit of rehearsing to do before we get to Baden-Baden. A really special guest today. I've been waiting to do this for 16 years, and finally he said yes. Simon Rattle, welcome to the Live Lounge.
Thank you, so happy to hang.
Finally! We are here in Berlin still because we've still got a little bit of work to do on Parsifal before we can descend on Baden-Baden.
Tell me about it.
But there's a really interesting story about how you even came to conduct Parsifal, your very first time. Tell us about it.
Well, of course, I was the normal Wagner freak as a teenager, but I came to it through the Ring, and somehow Parsifal seemed very far away, and I didn't really know anything about it. But in the 90s, I was doing my first ever Pelléas and Melisande in Amsterdam. The first time I worked with Peter Sellers, but this wonderful opera house. And singing Arkell was Robert Lloyd, one of the great British singers and of course one of the great Gurnemances of all time. And near the end of Pelléas and Melisande, he said in his fantastic ex-policeman's voice, "Oh, you know, Simon, if you can conduct the last act of Pelléas and Melisande like this, you ought to have a go at Parsifal. And actually, I think I'd make a rather good Gurnemanz if you did." And we carried on these conversations because sometimes you feel, okay, something is knocking on the door. Giulini said to me years ago, "Wait till pieces come and knock and find you." And he said, there's a rather good production of this on here next month.
Next month?
Yes.
And you hadn't
no, I hadn't seen it. It was a great production by Klaus-Michael Gruber. And so I came back to Amsterdam and saw it. And of course,
I thought you meant you were supposed to conduct it.
But I completely fell in love with it. And indeed, it was like going a step backwards from Pelléas and Melisande, because Debussy had really stolen so much from Parsifal and so much of the world of it. And I thought it was one of the shortest long things I had ever heard. And so indeed, 2 years later, I conducted Parsifal, and Bob Lloyd was a wonderful Gurnemanz. And for me, this is a very sentimental journey because, of course, he persuaded me to do my first, he sung my first, and I conducted his last Gurnemanz in the Proms, in the Albert Hall, I don't know, maybe 15 or 16 years ago. And we thought we were done with this because we've always been close. Last week, the wonderful Walter Fink, who was to sing Titurel, fell sick and said, "Look, I really can't do this." And I simply took my courage into my hands and rung up Bob Lloyd.
You rung up Bob Lloyd, although he's been retired for...
Well, Bob...
he hasn't really retired.
Bob is 78,
yeah.
and...
Usual time to maybe retire.
Absolutely, but basses can go on. And he said to me, "Well, Simon, actually, the voice is still in pretty good shape. The rest of me is falling to pieces. But I would really think about this. So tell me about the production." But I told him what it was going. And after about 10 minutes, he said, "Oh, I think I'm sold on this."
So Bob Lloyd is coming.
He's coming and we just thought, well, we can have dinner together a number of times. Really a wonderful man. And for both of us, it's like a circle turning round and closing.
This is wonderful.
And Bob is very close. At his age, he doesn't book himself more than 6 months in advance. He says, well, you can never know when I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. And so that's a thrill.
It really is. It's going to be lovely. I can't wait to hear that. He booms, doesn't he?
It's an extraordinary, extraordinary sound, and one of the most intelligent stage actors, always. And with Franz Josef Seliger's Gurnemanz, that is one of the most wonderful sounds and personalities you can have.
You've got a great cast of singers. We're going to get to them in a second, but we've also got a great cast of viewers. There are people watching literally all over the world. We have Australia, South America, Asia, Korea, Taiwan, Japan. We've even got some people still awake in America, or just woken up. What time is it there? It's like, oh, it's okay. It's 7:30 in the morning. That's
wow.
okay. So really, Sri Lanka, from Wales, from Scotland. Susan Smythe from Canada says, thank you for all the joy you've brought through the digital concert hall, which is lovely. I think we have a lot of viewers on who are really regular digital concert hall viewers who haven't been able to come over and hear us live and enjoy what we've done.
I mean, it's extraordinary to realise how far the DCH has gone and how many people really use it.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing from all over.
Yeah.
It's a resource. Look, I use it as a resource.
If we'd had this when we were students,
it
wouldn't have seen the light of day then for weeks.
Thank goodness there's not a just conductor's view channel, because that of course would be the most useful thing for us, but then everybody would see the awful things we get.
Actually, that's something that maybe someone would like to set up. Simon, it's tea time here. If you get two Brits together, guys, we have to have tea. So we have tea organised, and we have two very special mugs. This is yours. Now read what's on yours.
Der reine Tor.
Der reine Tor in English means?
Really, the pure idiot. That sounds like mine.
Some tea. There we go. So some afternoon tea. There's some. We say in England, "Shall I be mother?" Don't we? Even if you. And this one, on mine, it says "dienen dienen," which means to serve, which are the only two words that Kundry sings in Act 3. And you were just telling me a very funny story about that, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, the great epic fail in the
Milk?
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Mother. My mother would say it has to go in first, but there we go.
Yes, you're right. My mother's watching. She'll probably... You're right. Been in Germany too long. We've been in Germany a long time, Simon.
We really have.
We should have put the milk in first. Sorry, Mum.
So about 50 years ago, the Berlin Philharmonic did concert performances of the third act of Parsifal with Karajan, and he gave them his cast, and of course the three men sing a lot. And Kundry has simply these two words, dienen,
to serve, to serve.
And the Betriebsbüro, the people who booked it, thought, well, it's Karajan, we'd better get, who is the best Kundry? And so they hired Christa Ludwig for these two words, who accepted her full fee with enormous pleasure and said, really, this was the easiest and best gig she'd ever had, and could she do it again?
Christa Ludwig just singing two words. I bet that was quite an entrance. She probably didn't sit on stage for the entire third act, but I'm sure she got her applause at the end. That's very funny. Anyway, dienen, dienen, der reine Tor, that's us today. People are watching from all over the world, and please send in your questions. I want to stick to Parsifal for a bit first, because this is what we do at the Berlin Phil Live Lounge for Easter. We talk a little bit about what's happening there, about the production, and then I'll get to your questions as much as I can. So if you have a really important one, then send it in a few times, because it's quite a multitasking thing here, Girls can do that. Well, we'll try anyway. So you've been told. Yui from Beijing wrote she's been watching the digital concert for 10 years, and it made her to decide to study music. So that's very nice, isn't it? That's lovely.
No, it's so touching.
So there we go. Someone's saying the live stream had broken, but it's back up again. Jakob, is the live stream back up again? Everything's good. Good. This is what happens when you're live. But before we get to the questions, Hungarian music lovers, I want to read all these. You want to see these afterwards. There's some really fantastic things coming up. Lemon from Japan says, what was the most memorable experience with the Berlin Philharmonic? Now this is, for me, people say to me, what's the best experience, what's the most musical highlight you've had with Sir Simon? How on earth can we choose? It's like choosing a favorite child. It's virtually impossible.
We've been working 16 years together, and of course there are so many things that remain in the brain. I mean, I have to say the Wagner journey we've done together has often been really memorable. The Tristan from a couple of years ago, I will never forget.
I couldn't play the last, every single performance, I just pretended to play the last chords, because I had tears streaming down my face. It was incredible.
And Parsifal, which is, it's such a special piece for me, and although this is not an orchestra which is ever going to play this music very often, there is something about how this piece sounds with this group, which is, for me, so moving. And when, as you said, we've still got a little way to go there. There's an awful lot of dental flossing to do in the next week or so.
Today we were doing the second act, and there were a lot of, this is why we decided to decorate this wonderful green room. Green room, it fits quite well.
To be actually green.
To be actually, these are British bluebells, I think, apparently. And because in Act 2, of course, Parsifal comes and is seduced by all these Blumenmädchen, these flower maidens. Today, I wouldn't think, there wasn't that much seducing going on. It was, we were more learning the notes than seducing, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
But actually, this is a nice kind of far out psychedelic type of colour. I mean, there's something about the second act, particularly when all these creatures try to seduce him, which should be so sweet that you're almost sick from it. And that's not a bad colour.
Yeah, we thought we liked that. So what's the tell us about your production in Baden-Baden, because we're leaving next week. Yeah. You've been backwards and forwards. What's going on down there?
One of the hardest things in the world is to find a producer for Parsifal. And I suppose in a way...
Why?
Because it is a very, very special piece. You have to tell a story that lasts for 4 hours of music, which moves very slowly, but which has devastating things going on. And you have to have someone who is as patient as the music is. It's no use having someone who's going to fill the stage with endless fussy motion that will distract. It's like being told a long, long story. You have to be drawn in. Now, I mean, Dieter Dorn, who's our director, is in his 80s and one of the most teenage 80-year-olds I have ever seen.
I mean, a sprightly cast, that Dieter Dorn and Bob Lloyd. And
exactly, as Bob Lloyd said, oh, well, Dieter will understand what I'm going through then. But, I mean, what's interesting is he's absolutely intent on telling the story in as direct a way as possible. There's a lot of kind of Japanese influence. There's a point where the very deathly ill Amphitos, who would love to die but can't, comes, and these screens appear from nowhere. And I thought, I've seen this in Kurosawa. He said, oh yeah, this is Ran from Kurosawa. Wow. So in fact, all the elements of the set move, and they look like kind of some huge kind of Japanese screens in wood, but they all move with people behind them. Nothing is mechanical. It's all done by dancers in masks behind these screens. So they move and they collapse and they form a castle and they disappear. Wow. They disappear again.
A question from Sarah in Berlin. Will the horns be able to see anything?
Absolutely. The horns always find a way of seeing something.
We exactly. Get to sit right on the edge. Good. There's a lot. By the way, those of you watching, we have Elizabeth and Tobias. Tobias from Berlin Philharmoniker, and Elizabeth is our press secretary. And they are both watching, and they are in on the live chat. So if you have any sort of technical questions about how to get tickets, or where to be able to watch it, or anything about the Berlin Phil program or anything like that, then write in, and they will answer those questions for you. So thanks for doing that, you two. Emil from Johannesburg said, will the concert performances in the Philharmonie have minimal acting or scenery? Now, how are you planning it for here?
I think there is no possibility of scenery here, but there really is the possibility of movement.
But those have sometimes been the most moving performances I've found, these opera performances where we've got away from all the scenery and the setting. With due respect to all the wonderful directors and producers, it's been great. But when you get onto the stage of the Philharmonie and the singers have nothing, it's been incredibly moving.
But so much of this piece is inside people's brains, and what they're talking about is inside their brains. Yeah. So this I think can work beautifully here. But what's interesting is that Dieter seems to have produced a production that it's as though he has disappeared into it, and he's given a chance for people simply to tell the stories as simply as possible and as concentrated a way. And I think the fact that he was a musician to start with, he started life as a pianist and came to directing later, means that he he has the music in his bones.
Which you, I think, do as well after all these years. You can tell, you absolutely love it. And it's a different sort of music. Parsifal was Wagner's last opera. And it's just, to me, it's more transparent. It's more, I mean, of course, it's holy music as well. You know, the Bühnenweihfestspiel. I wrote that down, actually. That was too hard to memorize. It means a festival play for the consecration of the stage.
Yeah, but it's not religious in any way that we would really see it. It's a collection of all kinds of religions. I mean, there's a whole lot of Buddhist ideas in there. Kundry is obviously reincarnated. And in fact, he was working on his next opera about the Buddha at the same time. And it's more about a society that is completely falling to pieces. I mean, just absolutely, desperately dysfunctional. And what you do, what happens when your leader has a wound which cannot heal. It's very funny. I mean, of course, now I look at it through the eyes of my kids, and I see so much more Harry Potter in it than I ever did before. You have Dumbledore, you have Voldemort, you have everything. I hope this is not going to wreck the piece for me forever.
I'm going to be looking up.
But look, the music is, I mean, it's clearly Wagner, but it floats. Years and years ago, if you, in California, you can go and see this gigantic plane that Howard Hughes made, the Golden Goose. It was made of wood because it was made in wartime. It held 700 people. And when you go in, you're not allowed to actually see it. They tell you about it, they show you pictures of him, they say, it's the size of a football field, and you go, well, yeah, of course it's so. And then finally, after 10 minutes, you see it, and you cannot take it in, because it is the size of a football field. And there's a film of it flying. And when I saw that, it only flew for 2 minutes, but this huge bird hovering over the water just simply gave me my picture of what Parsifal is. It doesn't hover fast, but it's never on the ground. It's an orchestra without feet. And that seemed to me, yeah, this is what Parsifal does. It moves there gradually and it gets to this extraordinary goal.
And how do you pace yourself? It's like 4 hours something of music.
Well, when I first was learning it, well, the first thing, for at least a year, I wondered, will I ever know what's on the next page? And then there's suddenly a tipping point. And I was lucky enough to do it in this wonderful opera house in Amsterdam with the Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra, one of my favourite orchestras from years ago. They had also never played it. So we had a lot of rehearsals and were just able finally to see, how does it move? And now it just seems, well, it seems like it's part of the family.
Well, we've done a lot of long operas with you here in your 16 years. We had all the Ring, and we remember the Simon's water moments, when suddenly, after about 4 hours of music, you just have to take a gulp of water, and that was always...
Oh, but what I remember is the first night of Siegfried.
Oh,
when
yes.
Miloš, who's now nearly 10, was born, and I walked on just having left the hospital to see 2 enormous teddy bears on the music stand.
Right.
I wonder who put them there.
I wonder who thought of that.
I can't imagine.
I wonder. No one. I can't think of anyone. But yes, that was quite. How you got through that? 5 hours of Siegfried, and well, that was about the time Magdalena had been in labour. She wasn't in labour for much longer than that, was she?
Oh, absolutely not. No, thank you, Miloš. He popped out really very quickly.
He did. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a Siegfried that night. You should have called him Siegfried, actually. Oh, that would have been too predictable, I guess.
Please.
My goodness. Matias Araújo from Brazil, who's now in Paris, had a question to the maestro. I was fortunate to see the Amsterdam production in 1997. An unforgettable event. How does it feel 20 years later? Does it get any easier? Easier is
probably not the word. Much more familiar. But actually, the fact, you need to have it somehow in your system. And it just is basically something you can't do the first time. But as he'll remember, I mean, this was Violetta Urmana sung her first ever Wagner. I was conducting my first ever Wagner staged opera. And yeah, we were privileged to be discovering that together. But boy, is it a wonderful thing when you come back to this? And sometimes it's like one of those good sauces that's got better and better in the fridge.
Yeah.
After 20 years, the sauce might be a bit problematic.
I'm not sure if I want to taste that one. I love that. What I love about music is that when you haven't played a piece for a long time, when you play it again, you have all these wonderful memories of the last time you played. And the last time I played this was with Claudio. The year before you came, that was my very first year here. And then the time before that was Daniel Barenwood's at the Staatsoper, the big production there right after the wall had come down with John Tomlinson, who until I hear our new
production. I was there.
You were there, you came to see it, I remember. That was the Harry Kupfer scenario, wasn't it? Yes, it was so spacey and so modern.
But as always, so musical.
Yeah.
It made complete sense. And that's the thing, is actually to have a director who will breathe with the music. Some pieces work wonderfully with a counterpoint against it. But this one, you can't swim against the stream in this piece. You have to go where it takes you. And you don't always know in which direction it will take you.
Do you have a favorite moment? That's a terrible question, I know. Is there, I mean, the end music or the Good Friday music and the beginning of Act 2 where everyone goes, this orchestra just goes,
Oh, when I start getting shivers if I think of favorite moments. In Act 3, the Good Friday music, this feeling of this, often personally terrible man, the composer, who could not help himself but write ecstatic music. And sometimes there's just nothing to say, presented with the sheer beauty of what he does. And I mean, he must have been impossible, but wow.
Incredible music, it really is.
But I have about 4 hours of favourite bits, which covers most of it.
Yeah. So for the performances in Baden-Baden, which I hope if any of you are out there who are near Baden-Baden, who can get to Baden-Baden, we want you all to come down. It's going to be absolutely worth it, isn't it? It's going to be... I
think it will be really beautiful. And of course, this is, although it's the largest opera house in Germany,
how many people does it hold? Do you remember?
2,500.
2,500. It's huge.
It doesn't feel like it, and it has a wonderful thing that the orchestra can really play in the pit and not cover. It's a very difficult concert hall to play in, but actually as an opera house, it's wonderful.
Yeah. There's a very sweet question actually from Leo. I don't know, Leo, tell us where you're writing from. So Simon Rattle, do you feel rather like Amfortas having to fulfill his duty with his last strengths, or are you now wiser and more experienced? In other words, does it all get easier? It's quite sweet. You're not on your last leg, Simon. Not at all.
I really hope not. Look, it's wonderful to have a bit of experience behind you. On the other hand, there's a point where you realise, okay, no, this is not something you are ever going to get right. It's another kind of step in the journey.
It's nothing you can say after a performance, that was really like the ultimate Parsifal. It's always, you think always that could be a bit better.
Well, it's about different. Look, sometimes you get, okay, tonight we all really did what we can do. But this is a journey on which you never arrive, and thank God for that. I would never consent to arrive.
No, that's what we do. I love today in the rehearsal. You said we were rehearsing a little bit of the Klingsor bit, and you told us that Yevgeny, who's singing Klingsor, you said, "Sorry, dear orchestra, you have to play this right because I can't look after you at all during this bit because Yevgeny's like." Over there in Karlsruhe, and that's a sort of real balance that I find for an opera conductor. You have to take care of the orchestra, but you've got these singers in Nirvana, miles away on the stage.
Look, you never know what's going to happen in an opera.
Isn't that great?
But that is really wonderful.
Yeah.
And it makes it very, very alive.
Yeah.
Because every night people feel different. And every night the drama takes a different turn.
Yeah.
It would be terrible if it was predictable.
Yeah, absolutely. David Cooper's watching the chat. Hi, David. David's our principal horn is watching the chat. You're supposed to be practicing. No, it's a break time, isn't it? We'll see him in a minute, which is nice. Midori, our friend from Japan, my friend, she's greetings from Turkey.
Oh, how great.
She can't visit
Love to
Baden-Baden
Midori.
this year, but she will watch the performances on the digital concert hall, which is very nice. TJ asks you a question. If you listen to music at home, do you usually close your eyes? No, because you'd be attacked by 3 children if you did.
If they'll ever let me listen to anything that isn't,
that wasn't someone else asked
house
that
music.
question. That was the thing. They said, "What did you?" Someone asked, "What do you listen at home? What do you listen to?" House music.
Well, I mean,
You mean like
unfortunately, it's often what the kids want. No, if I'm there, it'll be jazz. If it's anything, really listening to it.
Anybody in particular?
Oh, if I want to cry, I will always listen to Joni Mitchell's album, The Both Sides Now. That will always get me every time. And I was actually looking at the computer. That album I've listened to more than any single other thing on the computer.
Does that mean you want to cry a lot?
Sometimes it's wonderful. Sometimes music gets to those bits of the nervous system that other bits don't. It's often crying with happiness.
Yeah. And if you want to do the cleaning or something, what would you put on for that? Some Cuban music. You like a little bit of
absolutely. Look, jazz with rhythm.
Jazz with rhythm. When people ask me what were my favorite experiences here with you, the Winter Marsalis band, when they visited us, that was a total highlight. I mean, that you got that to work and got them all over here. I mean, it was just an incredible week, wasn't it, with them?
Yeah, it was probably the most expensive week we have ever, more than Schoenberg's Gurrelieder with 3 choruses. But what was great was to see they are a truly great big band, and this is a truly great orchestra.
We learned so much from
it. But it was really interesting seeing both sides react to each other.
We both suffered a little bit, didn't we? Because we felt square and they felt not accurate enough.
Yeah. But I mean, the sheer respect coming out of the woodwind section, who were just right behind the jazz band. And can I say swear words on this program?
You can. We might beep them out later, but you can.
But we had this wonderful thing at Winton. Heard Gabor, one of our wonderful principal trumpets. He said, "Oh, Simon, this guy is amazing. You have to introduce me to him." And so I said, "Okay, great, come up now." And he came to, "Oh, Gabor, you're a bad motherfucker." And Gabor looked completely horrified. And I said, "Gabor, compliment. It's a compliment." Oh,
yeah, he thought he was being insulted.
So every time he sees me now, he goes, "You're a bad."
Yeah. Beep.
Beep. But I mean, they've become closest.
They are great friends.
They've become closest friends.
Yeah, I see them every time we go to New York. That was wonderful. A lot of nice things have happened around here with having you around, I must say. But we're not going to go into anything like that because I'll cry otherwise. I can't bear the thought. Can I ask you a question from Sri Lanka?
Yes.
From Srimal. He really wants me to ask this question because he's written it about 5 times in the chat. He says, could you give some advice to a young conductor? I mean, people or horn players ask me that, what advice would you give? And I just say, listen.
Look, Brahms was asked by music students, what's the best piece of advice you could give us? And he did something which I have never forgotten, which he said, every day practice 1 hour less, but read 1 more good book. Actually, what he was saying is live as well. I mean, and for conductors, the whole world goes into what we do. Music is about the world, it's not the other way around. Read everything. Walk in nature that looks more real than that. Talk to people, see pictures, have experiences. It all goes in. You can cannibalize everything into what you do. But music is so much more than notes. It's not what it says, it's what it means. So go for that. I mean, everybody. I'm sure orchestral musicians think they're looking for conductors. And of course, it's wonderful if you're technically accurate and you can do everything right and you can speak 27 languages. I mean, I can hardly even speak English anymore. But actually, you want people with ideas and to make it mean something.
Yeah.
But so good luck.
Amen.
You know.
Amen. Good advice for Sri Lanka.
Conductors, we need you.
Yes, we certainly do. There's a John Wilson watching. I wonder if that's our John Wilson, because his question, what he asks, it could be our John Wilson. He asks, do you still own the braces and waistcoat you wore for the cover of the jazz album? I know those ones. Do you remember?
Yeah, they got.
Could be our John.
Yeah, actually, no, the braces, the metal rusted.
Oh, is it that long ago, Simon?
Yeah. Well, I was 30 when I made the jazz album. And so this is really a long time. So that's more than half a lifetime ago.
Wow.
But was it fun? And we revisited those pieces again a couple of months ago here in Berlin, all the Paul Whiteman music. And boy, was it a pleasure. Yeah. What incredible music.
We have such a nice job. Question from New Zealand. Isn't this amazing? It's so fantastic to know that you're all watching out there. I just absolutely love this globalism. Is that a word? Globalism. Andy from New Zealand. Sir Simon, do you still remember the first piece which made you think, I want to dedicate my life to music?
I mean, certainly, music, it was hard to know. I think I was so little when I got into that. I can remember, really wanting to be a train driver and a bus driver because of the big wheel, and then suddenly it became music. But I know when I wanted to become a conductor. This was a performance of Mahler's Second Symphony in Liverpool when I was 11, and I can still remember where I sat in the hall because I was so electrified of it. I'd felt like I had it tattooed on me for days. That was it. That was a virus. That was the wound that will never heal.
So what did you do after that? Because kids these days would go out and YouTube it, Google it, would hear it, listen to it on Spotify. What did you do after that?
I saved my pocket money up and bought the record and got the score.
Which record was it?
It was Otto Klemperer and the Philharmoniker. But we had an incredible music library in Liverpool. I mean, hopefully we still do. But of course, you could get all the scores there, and I lived in this place. And of course, I lived in the hall. I mean, the people running the hall were always throwing the small boy out charge up the stairs and hide in rehearsals to hear them.
Oh, there's so many questions coming in, but I just want to get back. Some people are saying, what else is going on in Baden-Baden? Should we tell everyone what else is going on in Baden-Baden? You've got not only Parsifal planned.
Well, look, the fantastic thing in Baden-Baden is we could go there and they said, we want as much chamber music as you can give us. So endless ensembles from the orchestra playing all over the place, sometimes free concerts, sometimes paid concerts, but the whole town is filled with music. But there are wonderful concerts. Daniel Harding is conducting the Alpine Symphony. Ivan Fischer, another one of my heroes, is conducting the Mendelssohn Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm playing with Christian Zimmermann, one of my very, very favorite musicians in the world, the Bernstein's Second Symphony, this piano concerto for his birthday.
That's really hard, that piece.
No, it'll be hard for the Berliner Philharmoniker.
Oh, right.
It's
Did you hear that, everyone? Simon says it's not hard. It's hard for the Berliner Philharmonic, and that is because.
That is because it's a particular kind of rhythmic thing that we find hard. But I think the orchestra.
We're good at Parsifal, but
yeah, I think the orchestra will love it.
Yeah.
I'm working with Alina Garancia for the first time. Ravel and Berg.
Lovely.
Wonderful concerts.
Yeah, it really is. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, that and great sushi just opposite the hall.
Yes, I'll see you there. Great sushi opposite the hall. Well, a bit out and to the left. Jonas from Berlin is watching and saying, haben Sie schon mal eigene Musik komponiert? Have you composed your own music?
I mean, I've stolen other people's music. I stopped when I was a kid. Yeah. I realised actually I'd rather deal with other people's brains rather than mine. I mean, plagiarism wasn't in it. Look, I'm glad I know how hard it is to compose, and my God, how much time does it take to orchestrate and to actually write it out on the score?
Have people to do that for you. There's computer programs that'll do it.
Yeah, but it's still unimaginable work. Yeah. So fortunately, you don't have to listen to my music.
Well, you never know. Never say never. If you could only meet one composer,
Haydn.
I didn't expect you to answer that quickly. That's great. Why?
Oh, I just always thought he's the one. He must have been the funniest, sweetest, warmest man. And there's a great thing when he was learning English. He was talking. He wrote to somebody. He said, "You can see just from looking at my face that I'm a nice sort of fellow." I think when I listen to his music, when I listen to how he made this in this far flung away lonely place, all this music with wit and depth and humour and tragedy, I think this would have been the most fantastic person to cook dinner for, and I hope he likes slow-cooked lamb.
And there's a great slow-cooked lamb, that's your speciality. Daniel K. wants to know if you have a favourite wine. Now we're getting to the real questions.
Oh.
You can't ask Simon what his favourite wine is. What are your favourite wines, Simon?
Ooh.
Yes. Good question.
Yeah. Oh, I got given a bottle of Chateau Margaux from the year of my birth, which was about 1066. That was unforgettable.
Oh, good. Well, if anyone has one, hanging about at home, Simon would appreciate another one.
That you just don't know what to do with.
Eve from France said, "Good afternoon. Want to thank you for the happiness you've given us all." He met after the concert after the 25 years of Berlin Wall fall down. Hope to see you soon. It's just, Simon, you're so personable, and this is what people find you approachable.
Oh, no, but people are incredibly generous, and this is the nice thing, for the one or two people you get who tell you, probably completely correctly, just how awful the last performance was. Normally, people are so generous, and that's a wonderful thing. But sometimes, in this job, you get to meet people. You remember that night when Dustin Hoffman
I will never
came here.
that.
No one could take their eyes off him. No. And he was here because his daughter was studying in Berlin, and he wanted to come and meet me, and he came to the conductor's room. And I was terribly nervous, and then I saw him and I realized he was even more nervous. In fact, he was so nervous that he kind of knocked over the lamp near the wall. I thought, okay, this is funny. I wanted to say, look, I'm much more starstruck than you are. He
was a lot smaller than I imagined, though. What a great...
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all? What a great guy. I remember we were going across to our favourite coffee place on Potsdamer Platz, which shall remain nameless. And you and I were waiting to cross the street, and this taxi went past and went beep, 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 beep. And this Turkish taxi driver rolled down his window and said, "Sir Simon, Sir Simon." And I was just so impressed with that, because the taxi drivers even recognized you on the street. You've brought a real sense of music community to Berlin. And
we made it really important that we should be part of this city. We shouldn't be a diva over at the corner. And what's interesting is that through so many of the education projects, particularly the big dance projects we did, so many people came into this that would not normally be part of it. And that
parts of Berlin that would never usually come.
But I'm so proud of that.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful when you see other types of people here. The concert 3 orchestras did last year for an audience of all refugees was one of the most moving things I've ever seen. There was an extraordinary moment when my assistant referent, Andreas, he went out with a friend of his from Aleppo just to look at the audience. And a little boy came running up and hugged this guy. And they were from the same street in Aleppo, and they had no idea the other one was there. And that happened before that concert. And I conducted the whole concert thinking about what that means and what these people have gone through. It was still one of the greatest publics we've ever had. Many people who'd never been to a concert, as quiet and as concentrated as you could ever get, and electric. Sometimes music can do that and facilitates that. So I'm happy that everybody's embraced that here.
Absolutely. It's really changed the way people have think about classical music here in Berlin, at least. You know, this is what we've been trying to do on the digital concert hall with the education programs. And it's just, as you said, all those years ago in Rhythm Is It, music should be a necessity, not a luxury.
But I think, look, if I'd come up with the idea of the digital concert hall and I said, look, you're going to play every concert, every last concert of the week live all over the world, and it's going to be an enormous pressure and we're not going to pay you anything extra, everybody would say, oh, Simon, get out of here. But in fact,
it came out of the orchestra.
It came out of the orchestra, and now it works like that.
Yes, there's still some wonderful questions coming in. Lily asked something that I saw. They're coming in so quickly. I'll show you all the more when we're finished. You guys are writing some wonderful questions, and it's just going so quickly. Yannick from The Hague. I don't think that's our Yannick, but another Yannick. Which operas would you have liked to done with the Berlin Phil in 16 years? Because we could only do one a year. We've done an incredible palette of them. Is there any one you think, I would like to have gotten that one in?
Oh, I was desperate to do some Verdi, and somehow it never came. We wanted to do Simone Boccanegra, and actually in Baden-Baden they begged us not to because it's hard to. And similarly with Wozzeck.
Do you think that Wozzeck might have been a bit too much for an Easter festival? Do you think because it's considered a modern opera?
Look, I think they know their public. I would have loved to have experienced this orchestra playing Wozzeck. That must be something special. They did it
before, didn't they? They did it with
Claudio did it. But I discovered, I found I was allowed to conduct Puccini rather late. And there was a point when...
You loved it, didn't you? Oh, you loved it.
Well, particularly because it was like something I thought was forbidden to me, that this was outside my experience.
Yeah.
But we got very close at one point to doing the Trittico with Placido, and it wasn't able to work, of course, because of his crazy schedule. But I guess, now that you start asking about it, I can probably name you 50. But it's been great to do these, and one or two in concerts that we've done. Though the Janacek Cunning Little Vixen we were able to do this year in the Peter Sellers staging. They've been great things.
When she stands up on that table, the Cunning Little Vixen, and the stars come out, I had the biggest goosebumps I have ever experienced. It was an incredible moment. What Peter and you did here to transform the Philharmonie for the Passions, Cunning Little Vixen, Pelléas or Mélisande, unforgettable.
What's been great is actually the people inside the house have made such a huge effort for this. And of course, Peter is so generous. Anyone will do anything for him. But I mean, the amount of work that goes on for something like that, and you can transform the space in that way. Yeah. Well, we've learnt a lot about that in the last years.
So will we do anything like that for the live digital concert hall recording of, or streaming of Parsifal?
I think there just simply isn't time, and in fact we have two different singers. I mean,
yes, tell us about that. You've got your Parsifal singers in Baden-Baden,
and we have two different singers. We have Nina Stemmer and Stuart Skelton, who it was simply by chance that the singers from Baden-Baden were not available for here.
Because that's a week later, isn't it?
Absolutely, and so we decided, okay, there are two other of the greatest singers in the world who can come and do it, and so then we will have this experience.
Keep us on our toes, or you especially.
It will just have to be a matter of everybody having to keep their ears open.
Do you think that's the biggest difference between playing a symphony orchestra concert and playing an opera? For an orchestra like us, who are used to being on stage, and there's this, we give 200% on the night, and the orchestra can really like I don't know, how would you describe it? Like a wild animal? I don't know. It explodes.
I mean, there has to be a verb in German or English that means.
But actually, I think
what is
that word? Can you give us a word? We need that word.
What is wonderful is, of course, this orchestra have to realise when they're doing opera that someone else takes precedence, and that's really important. And And even if it's the same singer doing the same piece on different nights, they will need different things. It'll take longer to breathe, or they need something else. And we have to be there in support as well and tell the story with it. And I think that's incredibly important colour.
I agree. A couple of questions, Simon. Brubeck or Miles? Asked Bill Collins.
That, yeah, isn't that a tough one? I wouldn't consider they're even doing the same thing.
Good.
But of course, I grew up with Brubeck. It was one of my dad's favourites. And even when we realised that, oh my God, yes, he did write it all down. He didn't improvise.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is something he admitted later. Basically, the others improvised, he didn't.
So it is possible, because us horn players, we just literally find it very difficult to improvise. So if someone wrote, if we could get someone like Dave to write it all down, we might be cool jazzers.
But at the end of it all, of course, Miles.
Miles. Good. Greetings from a 91-year-old Marilyn in Denver. What's the most difficult piece to conduct and why? Is there something that's, what is really difficult? What makes you think, ooh? See, they really go, they get to the, cut to the nitty-gritty here.
In some ways, it depends what you mean by difficult.
Yeah.
When I first started doing the Passions, the Bach Passions, in a way I realized this was the most incredibly difficult thing, because you had to make it all happen while almost not being there. Sometimes it's a matter of releasing rather than imposing.
Because if you're almost not being there, you still have to physically keep everyone, because you had people there, you had people there.
Oh, you completely have to do it, but you have to make an atmosphere in which it happens. Of course, there are some things that are technically, physically incredibly difficult to do, but this is a kind of, that's an easier difficulty than the pieces you have to stand away from but yet make happen. It's one of the reasons I never conducted the Missa Solemnis. I think it's too hard for me.
Oh,
no, really. It's so rarely that comes off, but maybe one day.
Okay, well, we'll wait for that. Sanja in Croatia says thank you, and to you and the amazing orchestra, that we're able to hear your music. You brought unforgettable moments both live and through the digital concert hall. People just love the digital concert hall.
Oh, and is Croatia the most inspiring place to be for a musician? I have to say,
it really is.
We've done a number of holidays there, and in the Croatian waters, very often I find so much inspiration for what happens.
Which you swim around in, don't you, Simon?
In my funny way, yes.
Sorry. No, Croatia's absolutely stunning. Veronica says, writing on behalf of her 5-year-old daughter, Veronica, she loves the Vivo from your Pulcinella. She calls it the ta-ta-ta song. That's nice, Veronica, we like that. Tiger, they're getting quite, people always get very excited with their questions at the end. It's all very quiet at the beginning, and now we're getting to the end of the hangout. So I'll just ask some really quick ones, just for quick answers. Sure. Edward in Berlin. So Simon, at the age of 30, is one too old to transition from piano to conducting?
No, not if you've thought about it, but please do not think that this is an easy job. So many people saw Daniel Barenboim going from being pianist to conductor without realizing he'd been studying conducting since he was 13. Absolutely not. And actually, it's good not to be too young a conductor, but my God, it's as physically difficult as playing the most difficult piece on the piano in another way.
Joseph from Canada, gosh, they're all coming in, because I said it's the end, and now it's all coming in. It goes click, 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 and they all run away with me. How would you introduce teenagers to classical music who aren't familiar with it? Take them to
new music. I would throw them in front of a great big John Adams piece with all this kind of incredible rhythm and intensity. Don't go for simple stuff. Do the same kind of thing you do with kind of modern art. Just throw them into the jungle. Something loud.
Daniel K., do you get a lot of fan mail? You get some such sweet stuff. That picture of from a little girl in your dressing room, you know, with you get some lovely pictures and.
Yeah, I have a big constituency under the age of 6 and over the age of 80. I would say.
And what do the ones over 80 say, and what do the ones under 6 say?
I don't think we better go into that.
Right. Okay. Oh, Gustav wants to know: have you ever been asked to conduct Wagner in Bayreuth? Good question. Can you answer it?
I have a bit of a problem with Bayreuth.
Okay.
And its history. It must be the most wonderful thing. And I've still, for some reason, never managed even to set foot there.
But we're going to Baden-Baden.
We are going to Baden-Baden.
And Baden-Baden also has a lot of history, and it doesn't only have history, there are some people there waiting for you, who you will know, your cast.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm going to now show, you are now going to see a little greeting from Baden-Baden. I'm going to show it to Simon here. Jakob, tell us when it's ready to go.
Dong,
Dong,
dong, dong,
dong,
dong, dong, dong. Baden, 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 Baden.
Oh, Simon, where are you? This is the perfect time for you to be here rather than there with the lovely Sarah Willis. Here we are, the wonderful cast of Parsifal here in Baden-Baden, waiting for you to come and join us and bring us back into shape.
I want to send greetings to you from your nicht so reine Tor.
So, frag nicht weiter, nur fort nach Baden-Baden.
Ich glaube, wir fangen dann schon mal an vom Beginn.
Ciao!
You fantastic people, I love you all. But this is one of the joys of doing opera, is you make real family. And you could not get nicer, sweeter, smarter people than those guys.
It was wonderful. Jerry was here last week singing with Daniel.
Typical.
And I snuck in and said, listen, Jerry, we got to make a video. He's like, okay, what should we do? I said, well, sing something and say something to Simon. And that they sent me that day before. The Baden-Baden Festspielhaus, their media department helped out with that. So we're really looking forward to it. We are. We're looking forward to being here. Thank you guys for sending that in. Very, very grateful. There are still lots of questions coming in. I'm going to show them all to Simon, but unfortunately, we have another rehearsal to get to because we have got to do Act 3, haven't we?
We really do. You mean we've done Act 2?
Yeah, we played through it.
We got through it. Yeah.
Croatia, Malmo, Beijing, The Hague, Canberra, Sri Lanka. I mean, this is a truly global live lounge.
Thank you all so much for watching and being with us. And it is such a support you don't know. What a fantastic thing. Bless you.
Thank you so much, Simon. It meant a lot to be able to do this with you. And shall we finish off the shortbread when the cameras
go
off? Shortbread and scone. Do you say scone or scone?
I say scone, but my mother was very proper, you know.
Well, we will see you all, hopefully, well, maybe not you in Sri Lanka and Australia and the rest in Baden-Baden, but anyone who's nearby and can get there, train, plane, bus, come and see us down there. It's going to be a wonderful performance of Parsifal. Otherwise, join us live on the Digital Concert Hall. For the what are we doing live? We're doing the Parsifal from here and a couple of concerts from Baden-Baden. Yeah. So there's always something going on. Thank you, Simon.
Bless you, darling.
And see you back up on stage. And to say goodbye, we're going to be sung out by the Blumenmädchen, your flower maiden. So we say goodbye from Berlin and Baden-Baden saying goodbye from there. See you soon.
Bist du uns hold, so bleib nicht fern. Und willst du uns nicht schelten, wir werden dir's entgelten. Dear Simon, spring has kissed the flower maidens in Baden-Baden, and we are awaiting you.